Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Getting Your Teams Ready for CSRD expert talk today. We're very happy to have you on board, and very curious also about our guest speakers' input today about the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive. At the same time, curious where you guys are from, who is attending today, where are you based? Feel free to write in the chat and let us know where you are currently working from. Also feel free to share what company you're working at so we get a bit of an overview who is with us today. We'll wait another 2 or 3 minutes to make sure everyone who wants to join joins. In the meantime, I will introduce myself. My name is Stephanie. I'm the co-founder of We Go Zero, a zero waste consultancy based in Amsterdam. And we make it easy for people to go zero waste, especially for people working in companies. Like Talha, he is working as an LCA researcher for DTX Collaboration Lab in Portugal. Great to have you here. Thanks for joining. Anyone else who wants to share where you're based or what company you're working for or what your field of expertise is, so we get to know each other a bit better and see who's on board today. All right, I think we're ready to get started. Welcome again, getting your teams ready for CSRD, the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive. Today we will learn more about what CSRD is and how we can put it into practice. And therefore we invited our guest speaker, Violetta, that I will introduce in a bit. Let's look at our program for today. So what you will need for this presentation is a smartphone with a QR scanner, because we also want you to involve a bit in the presentation and be a bit interactive together with us. And always a good idea is to have a pen and paper or notepad next to you to make some notes and remember them later when you need them. Regarding our agenda, we're in the middle of the intro. Then we will look at what is the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive. And then, as I already said, I will introduce our speaker, Violetta, who will answer a few questions about CSRD. After that, we have time for a Q&A discussion. You can already post all of your questions into the chat while I'm presenting, or while Violetta is answering my questions. And at the end of the sessions, we will go through all of your questions. And then there's some time to network and chat with each other at the end. All right, let's get started. So first of all, I want to know, what is CSRD from you? Have you heard of the term before? What do you connect with Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive? I would ask you to take your phone and scan this QR code and enter the first 3 words that come to your mind when you think of CSRD. Don't worry, you don't have to be super smart. It's also anonymous. Just write whatever comes to your mind. If it's a color, if it's green, just write it down. And in a bit, a word cloud is created where we can see what CSRD is for all of us. If you have difficulties scanning the QR code, I would recommend to go a bit closer with your phone, and then you should be able to click on the link. Otherwise, you also have the link here below. It's menti.com/ALNBOP1TJZQD. But as I assume that most of us have a smartphone already, it should be easy for you to scan the QR code. Let's give it a bit so everyone has the chance to scan the QR code. If you just joined the presentation, again, we're creating a word cloud here about what Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive is. You can enter 3 words into this Menti survey that you connect to CSRD. Kwasi is here, joining from France. Great. Hey, Anna, founder of River Cycleway Europe, innovator working on floating cycling infrastructure for European cities, Dublin, Ireland. Thank you. Fantastic that you joined. And at the same time, I just remembered I haven't replied to you yet. I will do very soon. So happy to have you here. All right. So I think we had enough time to scan the QR code. Let's look at the word cloud. Let me see if you can see. Yeah, here it is. All right. I see some movements here already. I see compliance, EU, accountability, efficient, sustainability, responsibility, paperless office, sounds good, form filling, for sure, energy consumption, doing, very good input. This is what we will talk about today as well. It's much about doing and acting as a business, as well as a person. So we will dive deeper into that today. Any more input from you guys? Otherwise, I will just share a very simple definition of CSRD. So the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive requires a company to report on environmental and social impact of their business. And this is based on the European Green Deal. And the purpose of the European Green Deal is to make Europe the first climate neutral continent by 2050. And today we will dive deeper into this topic and also look at challenges and opportunities that come with the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive. Let me get back to our other presentation. All those technicalities here. All right. So, what are challenges that come with the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive that comes into force in 2024? So, there are quite some challenges to overcome, as you can see. One of the biggest ones is for sure data availability and the comparability of this data, since the directive requires companies to measure their impact in numbers. We're very, this is very much connected to data that we need to report. At the same time, transparency and complexity of the topic will be a challenge, thinking of tracking and tracing back supply chains of products. There, there are numerous challenges to overcome there as well. Penalty risk for non-compliance is, yeah, probably not a challenge, but it's yeah, a risk that you have to pay fine. Alignment with the strategy. This is something that we will focus on today when we talk with Violetta later. The leadership engagement plays an important role. Also, employee engagement can be a challenge when not the whole team is on board. It's going to be difficult to implement the CSRD. Budget control is a topic. Resource availability, communication internally and externally, and greenwashing is still a big topic and a challenge to overcome. But with those challenges, there are also opportunities that come with the corporate sustainability reporting directive, such as the investments are focused on proven sustainability. You can target new customer segments, create a competitive advantage. You can improve your corporate reputation through being more sustainable. It's also beneficial for employer branding. You can inspire your employees to spread the impact with, for example, organizing team workshops, which both Violetta and I do to get really the whole team on board. And then you're also able to make an impact for future generations and at the same time reverse the damage of the last decades and of the Industrial Revolution. And of course, in alignment with the CSRD directive, you can also be a pioneer in your field moving towards zero waste and sustainability. Okay, let me quickly check the chat, see if there's anyone else joining us. Linda, great to have you here, based in Basel, Switzerland. So we have very international people here from all over Europe. Thanks for joining, everyone. Now it's time for me to welcome Violetta, founder of Openness. Let me get her here. So, hi, Violetta.
Hello, hi Stephanie, and thank you for inviting me. Very happy to be here. I guess I should kind of introduce myself just.
Yes, that was what I was about to say. So let us know a bit about you and what you do, and then I'm gonna ask you a bunch of questions that are hopefully interesting for our audience today.
Sure. Okay, so I'm a professional of with an experience of about 20 years now in corporations, and I've been working in marketing and commercial roles for all those years. I also had responsibility for the sustainability in one of my roles, and that was the bridging with what I'm doing now. And as you mentioned, I'm the founder of Openness, and it's a consulting business that tries to help other organizations become more sustainable. And the areas that we focus on are mainly to help them plot down the strategy, which is quite difficult, but do it in a realistic way and in a way that it will actually drive actions that will have impact. And another thing we do, and you did mention we do workshops, is that we try to engage everybody in an organization to help with these efforts, because sustainability is not something that one person does. It's not a chief sustainability officer, doing something and then everybody else doing something else. It has to be in the core of the business. So this is what we're trying to do.
Perfect. Thanks for sharing. And we can't wait to hear more from you,
Hmm.
especially about the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive. That is today our main focus. And
Hmm.
yeah, let me get to the next slide and ask you the first question. Also, as I already said to the audience, feel free to post your questions in the chat. We will answer them in a bit. And yeah, you can just drop them here and we will come back to your questions very shortly. All right, Violetta, then I will ask my questions to you
Sure.
today.
I'm ready.
Great. So let's begin with some simple ones. So, what businesses, or more or less simple, I guess, what businesses are affected by CSRD?
Um, well, actually, I'll go a bit more, a bit back and say which were not affected before, which was, almost everybody. Before the businesses, before CSRD, the businesses that had to do some kind of sustainability, some kind of social and environmental actions to give back were just the very large listed companies and those of public interest, like banks and insurance companies. So it was across Europe, it was something like 11,000 businesses across EU, European Union. It was something like 11,000, a bit more than 11,000. Now it's going to be more than 60,000 affected because what happened is that the European Union decided that the risk is too big, is too high, and we have to have more businesses on board that they have to do some kind of, action around giving back to society and giving back to the environment. So the criteria are very wide now, and just to help people understand whether their business would be in or out, it would be every listed business, with the exception of the micro enterprises, like up to 25 people. So almost all businesses that are listed, and also all the what we would call the large businesses, which would be from 250 employees and up, from 40 million euros revenue and up, or 20 million assets worth and up. So if you had two or three of these criteria, then you have to do sustainability and you have to report it under the CSRD. So it's actually, probably every large business you can think of.
Wow, that's impactful and
Yes.
makes me yeah, smile
Yeah.
because it also means a more sustainable future for Europe.
Yes, yes. And also, sorry, one note, what I found very interesting with the CSRD is that it also includes, for example, if a business is listed in the US, but they have subsidiaries in the European Union, it
Mhm.
applies for them as well. So you can understand
Okay.
that this is huge. It actually just leaves aside the very small businesses that might not have the resources or the
Mhm.
capacity to do stuff. But everybody else, they really have to start, getting there.
Fantastic.
Hmm.
All right. And what exactly needs to be reported under CSRD? Can we already define that
That's
specifically?
the million-dollar question, Stephanie. And I'm laughing because it's always a big discussion around this, and the European Union has been quite slow with decisions and also with communication, I should say, around CSRD. So it's not 100% defined exactly how we will report things or what kind of indices we need to use. But to be very honest, I think we can, any business could start even today doing stuff and using common sense to measure things. So, for example, we do know that the European Union acceptable metrics will take into consideration the mainstream, organizations like GRI, for example. So any type of environmental metric, social metric, would be able to fit into what the EU will be expecting, as long as it is transparent. You can prove that you've done it, and it's obviously measurable. It's
Yeah.
not like many of us went and did something. You have to say it was 220 people involved, or percentage of women in boards, number of tons of CO2 emissions, that sort of stuff. But it would really be quite basic, the type of metrics we will be using. What's also very interesting, though, is that it has to be um, uh, internet friendly. So you have to use metrics that you can then tag online, so that at some point all these reports, they will be comparable. It will be easy to pull, metrics per business, per industry, etc. So they're trying to set up a framework that will work for everybody and will make the information more accessible.
Thanks for sharing, Violetta. Again, data and measurability in the center of our focus for CSRD.
Mhm.
Um, what happens if you, as a company, if you already took some effort to be more sustainable? How does CSRD affect your existing sustainability efforts?
Well, and this should be the case for many businesses, by the way, because I think many businesses, they do sustainability stuff, whether they know it or not. Sometimes, on purpose, sometimes they just do it and they don't realize, or they don't record it as such.
Yeah.
Um, it doesn't really affect it in the sense that you can keep doing what you were doing, for sure. Nobody's stopping you. What it does, though, is that it adds more structure. So when
Mm-hmm.
you do it, and then if you have to report it down the road, then you have to record everything you're doing. You have to collect all the metrics that we were talking about. And I think one of the most important things is that you also need to kind of set up your business so that it's everything you do is reflected in the way you do business,
Mm-hmm.
because up to now, a business could, for example, donate an amount of money, say, to a non-profit organization for I don't know, for poor nations, for example. And you could do that, and it would be a good thing that you've done, check, communicate it, and that's that. But now, what you have to do is, if, for example, philanthropy is part of it, you need to make sure that it's reflected in your processes, in your culture, in the way you do your business. So it has to come out somehow through your operations, and not just as a side, project that somebody just um, gave money away, or gave things away, or donated something in any way.
Thanks for sharing again, Violetta. How does the timeline of implementation look like? Could you tell us a bit more about that?
Sure. Well, it's as I said, it will start involving more and more businesses, and it's starting in 2024.
Mm-hmm.
So next year, all the businesses that are already subject to the NFRD, the NFRD is the non-financial reporting directive, which is for large public interest companies of more than 500 employees. Then you have to report under CSRD as well. So up until now, they had to report some kind of non-financial information, but now it has to be specifically on the environment, specifically on society. So these businesses need to start adapting their reporting to the CSRD requirements. And then from next year, 2025, they will need to, the CSRD will apply to businesses that are considered large. So the criteria I told you, 250 people and up, 40 million revenues and up, etc. So the bulk of the new businesses that will be, that will be coming under the CSRD should do it by 2025, which means that to report 2025, you need to do stuff in 2024, right? And to do stuff in 2024, you need to kind of prepare your organization in terms of, structure, resources, decisions, like priorities, to start doing things. And then you have the rest, which are the listed medium-sized businesses. So everybody who is listed but is not a large business in 2026. So they're rolling it out in 3 years, the European Union, to make it easier for the smaller businesses to get prepared, because it's going to take some effort, to get ready for CSRD.
Got it. So we still have some time, but the earlier we start, the better.
Yes, I mean, sometimes in discussions that I have with customers, I always bring the GDPR as an example. We knew about GDPR like months or even years before it was actually implemented. And I don't know if you remember, but it was this day in May of the
Mhm.
year that it was enforced. And suddenly on that day, as a consumer, I started getting emails from businesses very anxious to confirm that I opt in to,
Yeah.
keep having me in their lists. And I realized, being also a marketeer, that, they knew about it. They did nothing up until the absolute last minute. And there was a big problem with that because, on the other side, I was flooding, my inbox was flooded by messages of that sort. So I wasn't responding, with a clear head. Uh, I was just keeping the ones that I really, really, really liked. But what I'm saying here is that they didn't get prepared early enough, and they didn't have to do much. I mean, CSRDs requires a lot more effort than to get prepared for GDPR. And by GDPR, for everyone, I mean the data privacy law that came into effect a few years ago and suddenly made, personal data a lot more valuable, sensitive, and private, personal, really. So we do have time, but I think most businesses should start getting ready because there's a lot to be done.
I agree. So better not panic in 2024, but
Exactly.
start slowly already now. And yeah, that's also the reason why we have this presentation today to
Mhm.
give you some more insights about CSRD. Another question that I have: what is the role of leadership when preparing for CSRD? What can the management level do in order to best prepare?
Um, a lot is the short answer. Uh, I mean, as I said, sustainability, and this is not about CSRD per se. It's about becoming more sustainable, right? CSRD is just asking businesses to kind of prove that they're doing what they say they're doing, and actually, making them do something about society environment. But for a business to become more sustainable, as I said, it's not the job of one person or one team. So you cannot have, in good cases, you have the, say, chief sustainability officer or someone who has that role and has to, drive things. In most cases, you have someone, say the HR person or the marketing person, wearing an extra hat saying, sustainability. And then it's like a side project that they have to do, and they have to bring everybody on board. But this is more about getting everybody in the leadership team and eventually the whole organization on board, in the sense that, if you don't have, for example, your CFO involved, then somebody said paperless office when they heard CSRD, right? So how can you have, for example, an effort to become paperless if your finance department is not on board and if their leader is not coming with ideas how to reduce paper, for example, and then also motivating their teams to follow through? Because it's one thing to make a decision and say, for example, we're not printing invoices anymore, one simple thing. And then there's another thing to actually make people do it, and also do it in a way, in a positive way, not, whine about it, because you can kind of force them to do it. But that beats the purpose because they're going to do the bare minimum and they're not going to contribute positively to the whole thing. Whereas if you have a motivated team that understands why they're doing it and what the impact is, then they will come with more ideas. So why not, digitize another process that would save us a lot of paper, which is good for the environment? You know what I mean? So what you essentially need is everybody in the leadership team to really, embrace the vision of becoming more sustainable, then thinking about ways of how to do it through their own, function and teams and area of responsibility, and then obviously motivate their teams to do it and to come up with more ideas, because it's also a very, dynamic process. Becoming sustainable, again, is not a project of 6 months and then we're sustainable, check. and no need to do anything else about it. It's a dynamic process, and you always need to rethink, redesign, and reimagine how you could be doing things. So I think if there's one thing that that I would recommend to business to start with, is getting the leadership team on board and check how they feel about the whole thing, how much they want to contribute, if there are any second thoughts. Like people, there are some people who don't really believe, that this makes any sense. So you have to know if you have one of those persons in your team, in your business, because maybe they will take a little bit more time, or maybe invest in creating awareness about things, because sometimes in my experience, we've worked with customers and some people say, why should I care for climate change? I mean, I'm based in Greece, and why should I care that polar bears are starving? I mean, I do care, but what can I do with my business, through my business, to compensate for that? So you have to have this discussion about why it's everybody's business, and it's not as obvious for everyone. So I think leadership teams are the first who should be involved and engaged and drive this whole thing.
That is very true. I agree very much, Violetta. I'm done with my questions for now. So again, I'm inviting our audience to post questions in the chat. Whatever comes to your mind, share it with us. Also, if it's not a question, if you just want to contribute to the conversation, please feel free to share in the chat. And while you type your questions or your comments, I will go to the next slide, Violetta. I think there's some points you would like to mention here.
Yeah. So again, through experience of kind of working with different, businesses who are trying to become more sustainable, what we've seen is that there are a few things that really work, like that they can really help a business change the way they operate. The first one is to create a network of ambassadors and try to include different people from different backgrounds, different, functions, different levels, make it as diverse as possible. And this is because, as I was saying with the leadership team, you need to bring ideas from the people who are actually doing the work. So this team of ambassadors would be working in two ways. One would be to kind of, get ideas, to bring you back ideas of how processes could be changed, tools could be changed, ways of working could, be adapted to be more sustainable. And the other is to help you spread the word through the organization, because having people, who come from different backgrounds, it would help you kind of inspire and motivate the other employees to become more engaged. So this is one of the things, and they can actually help you with planning as well. So when you start thinking about, what to do in 2024, they can have discussions. They know what's happening in their own functions, so you can get a lot of feedback on, what would make sense as a sustainability area, and then action for next year. And another thing, which is more kind of technical, but again, it really works, is you need to get sustainability in the discussion about performance and what is my job, right? So me as a CMO, for example, I knew that my job had to do with different things ranging, from branding to digital to lead generation to sales, whatever it was. But if I didn't have a certain, objective, so when I do my performance review with my CEO, for example, she or he would ask, what happened with the environmental efforts. So if I don't have that, I'm not going to put too much effort. Not me personally, but any executive. You have to have it in your structure, in the way you evaluate people to be promoted, to get a raise, anything. And then the last part is, um, you have to bring this to the leadership as well. So you have to have these objectives, these KPIs, to your management team, to your, function heads, however you're structured, the ones who drive the whole thing, the whole operation, and also make these KPIs shared. So if I, for example, as a CMO, have a specific KPI around, what we do for the society, the same or a very similar KPI should be, you know, assigned to the CFO or to the COO or to anybody else doing something similar, like me. In this way, we have to work together to make this happen. Otherwise, I could be kind of sabotaging, not on purpose, but because I want to make my KPI happen. Maybe I won't, put much effort into something else that's somebody else's KPI. So I think this alignment will also help the whole strategy be aligned and go down, across the organization, and not have this frustration of, but the CEO announced that we need to be more environmentally friendly, and then suddenly we change all of our company cars to petrol cars, for example. So how does it, make sense? It doesn't. So this is kind of a thing that you need to do it top down, but in a very aligned and structured way.
Thank you, Violetta. I see we have our first question here from Anna.
Mm-hmm.
So to align that with the presentation, let's go to this slide. So Anna says, hi, ambassadors are good to communicate sustainability performance.
Mm-hmm.
Quick question. How does the EU CSRD 2024 plan compare with the B Corp certification processes? Are there parallels? Very interesting question.
It's very interesting question, indeed. Um, there are parallels, as far as I know, not official though. I mean, it's not like the EU said that, the process that is followed for a B Corp certification is included, as far as I know, at least. But there are parallels in the sense that, as I said before with reporting, it's all about common sense. So it's all about proving that you are doing something and that there is transparency and that, you're measuring it and you're having improvement and it's part of your structure because to become a corporate, to become a B Corp organization, you have to really prove that this is part of how you do business, right? It's not just an initiative that you did and it's over and you forget about it. So I think in that sense, they're very similar. And I think that, for example, a business who is B Corp certified, it would be very easy for them to kind of do the CSRD part, the reporting part, because it's ready, and vice versa. Someone who becomes ready for CSRD, then I think that B Corp would be fairly a lot easier than a business who is not ready for CSRD. So yeah, they're quite similar, I'd say.
Did that answer your question, Anna? Any other questions? Anyone from the audience who wants to ask our CSRD expert Violetta something? Now is the chance. You can also add your comments, share whatever thoughts come to your mind. Feel free to type here in the chat. I know we're having a bit of a delay, so I think you hear us 30 seconds later. Okay,
So I think Anna is happy with the response.
Great.
That is great. By the way, while we're waiting, let me just mention, because this B Corp question was really, really good. Businesses that are going for the B Corp certification, they're there. I mean, they know they have to become more sustainable. They're putting the effort, they're putting their resources, everything. I think that the big bet right now is for the businesses who either did, sustainability stuff or CSR stuff, but like fireworks, like we're doing something now, then it dies, and then at some point we do something else and it dies, and it's not necessarily connected. Or for the businesses who now realize that they have to become more sustainable and they have no idea where to start. Because we're working with many of those businesses and it can be really chaotic, I would say, in the sense that, where do you start? I mean, do you start from women ratio versus men? Do you start from diversity ratios? Do you start from CO2 emissions? Do you start from water consumption, paper use? I mean, plastic, you name it, production, packaging. Yeah. There's so many things that you could be doing, but I think the very hard part, the hardest step is the first, to figure out what makes sense for your business and what is realistically uh, achievable, what you can really do to have some impact.
I agree. And regarding that first step, could you maybe give us one example how you would support the company taking that first step?
Well, yeah, sure. It starts with leadership again. I mean, usually what we do is we sit down and we discuss all the business, strategy, some vision. Maybe the business wants to transform somehow within the next few years. And then we work together to find specific areas that make sense for the business itself, but also that it can have impact, right? The numbers are significant enough and it makes sense for the business to invest there. And in certain cases, we also ask the employees and we try to align the two because you have the management vision on one hand, and then you have all the people who are really the flesh and bones of the organization, and sometimes what the management thinks they should be doing, the employees don't care for. So if you don't have that connection, then you end up announcing an initiative and then nobody is engaged, nobody is participating. So we try to do, a questionnaire for the employees to see what they care for, and then try to bring the vision and the actual thing together, so that again, being realistic is our first objective as a consultant, to make sure that whatever we propose and whatever we work on, it will actually happen and bring results.
Great. All right. So I see there are no more questions coming in for now.
Actually, there's
Oh, yeah,
one.
there is. True. Okay. Astrid is asking, Hi, Violetta. Thank you for the presentation. Is there any mention in the CSRD about using primary versus third-party data in the future?
Hoping I'm understanding this right. I haven't seen a direct mention in CSRD, but again, because the EU is releasing, notes and clarifications all the time, there could be one, and I haven't seen it yet. But um, I do believe that if you can prove that the third-party data is, correct, and if you can have a transparent path back to the source of the data, then you can use it under the CSRD. I think that's the way they have described the whole framework. I think that should be valid. Transparency, I think, is key. I mean, just being able to prove that what you're saying is actually what's happening.
Thanks for your question, Astrid, and thanks for answering, Violetta. Any more questions? Now you have the chance to talk to a real expert on the topic of CSRD. And but also feel free to reach out anytime via email or also in the chat or on LinkedIn.
Yes.
We have all the contact details in the event as well, so you can contact either Violetta or me. We
Hmm.
go zero as a company or openness. Let me see what the next slide is. So I hope that your key takeaways for today were that you learned more about CSRD, that we could explain in a bit more detail. I also hope that you were able to ask your questions to an expert in the field and also connect to like-minded entrepreneurs who are pioneering in the field of becoming more sustainable and following the corporate sustainability reporting directive.
Stephanie, before I'll interrupt you just because we had another comment, I'd say,
Yeah.
drop in
Ah,
from Emilia, saying that she wishes there was more talk going on about how to incorporate employees apart from the business as a whole in the sustainable development. And I cannot agree more. I mean, I just wanted to bring this comment forward. I cannot agree more. And as I said, it was actually the reason why we started Openness, and I'm sure It's a similar thing with your workshops for zero waste. You cannot have success unless you have everybody on board, because you can have, the recycling bins in the office and then nobody just take, the two steps required to go and recycle something. So you do need to engage them more, but to do that you have to have the leadership on board, because otherwise they will not invest. And not just budget, I'm not talking about money. They will not invest in, the capacity of their people. Like, why are you taking X person or X department earlier on Friday, for example, to go and clean up a beach? You know, they should be working. So you cannot have, if you don't have the leadership on board, then it's very difficult to engage everybody else. But I think that's a key, and it should be discussed more. And it would be a very nice comment and a very nice topic for another webinar, Stephanie. Mental note.
I agree, yeah. Great. Um, all right. I would say let's come to an end if there are no more questions. Dankjewel in Dutch, and thank you very much for joining. Ευχαριστώ πάρα πολύ in Greek. Und danke in German. Anyway, thanks for joining. And as a last thought, I want to share this quote with you: "Nature does not hurry, yet everything is accomplished." So we don't want to get in that stress of putting things into practice. Let's
Yeah. One step at
prepare in time and get things done.
exactly.
Violetta, any last word from your side?
No, I think this quote is the best thing to close this whole discussion. Just one step at a time. I'm with you.
Exactly. Cool. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining. As I already said, feel free to reach out to us. Emilia wrote here, honestly, it is the first time that I listened to this particular subject because people are mostly discussing about how a business is going to move forward to their sustainability goals. Thanks again. Thank you, Emilia, for joining. And I wish you all a wonderful afternoon. And yeah, we hope to keep in touch with you guys. And I think there will be more talks like this in the future. And we're happy to have you on board again. Have a
Perfect.
good day and see you soon, hopefully.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye. Thank you, Violetta, for joining.
Thank you.